I never thought I would tell this story, but life has a way of throwing you into strange situations. I am Margaret, 64 years old, and 4 years I have dealt with the challenges of raising my son by myself. Daniel is 22 now, and we've always shared everything, like two people going through a storm together, helping each other through all the good and bad times. One night, everything changed. Daniel's tired eyes told me a lot as he whispered that he felt sick. He had been pushing himself, studying without a break. He asked to rest on my bed. It was a cold night in our house, and warmth was hard too. Fine, I put the heavy blanket over him, and at first it felt normal, just a mother caring for her son. As I lay next to him, his warmth wrapped around me. He moved closer to me, looking for warmth, and I tried not to think much of it until he was resting quietly beside me. For a moment, it reminded me of when he was just a boy needing comfort after a bad dream. I was surprised, but chose to let it pass. He was probably just looking for comfort. His warmth surrounded me, and his steady breath was a calming sound. In the quiet, Daniel's breathing faded as he started to fall asleep. The silence surrounded me, and every heartbeat seemed loud. It was strange, but also calming. I stayed still, not wanting to disturb him, telling myself it was just a mother comforting her child. He moved again, scooting closer under the blanket. His arm tightened around me, and I froze, my mind spinning with confusion. Part of me wanted to get away, yet another part was stuck in place. The feeling in the air was thick and heavy, hard to explain, but taking over everything. Then, in a moment, things changed. I felt him move strangely under the blanket, and his movement surprised me in the quiet. It hit me suddenly, and my heart started pounding. I fought to stay calm, telling myself he was just my son and maybe didn't even know what he was doing. I just lay there, fighting the strong feelings inside me. I told myself it was just a quick, awkward moment that would go away. As the minutes passed, I had a clear thought. Everything had changed, and I had no idea how to handle it. Daniel stayed near, his breath calm, but the heat between us felt electric as we got closer. I wanted to say something light to break the mood, but I couldn't find the words. I was stuck in that moment, lost in a swirl of confusing feelings. Just then, Daniel moved and looked up to meet my eyes. His look was like a soft hug. I had never seen him look at me that way. It was a mix of safety and worry that took my breath away. He didn't say anything, but his look seemed to cut through the silence, asking for the truth I was hiding. I forced a smile, hoping it would bring some relief, but it only made the strange silence feel deeper. Daniel's hand held my arm. It was warm, soft, and steady. His hand brushed against mine by accident, and I tensed up, not sure why the quiet felt so heavy. Such a small touch, yet it started a fire inside me. There was a part of me that I wasn't saying out loud. I held my breath, trying to be still and hide my fast-beating heart from him. Lost in the moment, I lay there, feeling overwhelmed by our strange connection. In that silence, I told myself it was just a mother calming her son. Yet under the blanket, everything felt different. Thoughts were spinning in my mind, unsettling and impossible to ignore. He was there, and as I lay next to him, a deep feeling of connection washed over me. Confusion and warmth mixed inside me. A strange feeling that made me freeze. Daniel didn't seem to know I was in pain. He stayed by my side, his hand moving gently, a calming touch that felt natural. His breath was steady, his eyes shut tight. I wondered if he was falling asleep, but then his hand moved slowly and with purpose. A chill ran up my arm as he opened his eyes and stared into mine. There was something in his eyes I couldn't understand, a quiet confusion that I also felt. Deep down, I whispered his name, struggling to get the word out, wanting this to end. He leaned in, then pulled back, but I couldn't make space between us. The tension between us was like a quiet storm getting ready to break. We stayed silent, but the air was full of things we weren't saying, feelings we both sensed but couldn't name. He leaned in as if something was pulling him closer. My heart raced, my mind spun, yet I couldn't pull away. I was torn, trapped between being his mother and the strange feelings that had come up. He leaned in, and I couldn't breathe. All my thoughts disappeared, leaving just that electric moment between us. Daniel's hand stayed on my shoulder, his fingers shaking, stuck in a moment of not knowing what to do. The world went away. All that mattered was his warmth and the sound of his heart beating in my mind. I shut my eyes, trying to find calm. I told myself to back away from being so close, but then his hand brushed a piece of hair from my face, and it set off a storm inside me. It was a simple touch, but it hurt my heart and left me in a whirl of pain I couldn't explain. My eyes fluttered open, and he was there, looking at me with a softness that cut through the air. His face was so close I could see every detail. The small freckles, the soft shape of his lips, the way his eyes looked into mine, full of feelings he wasn't saying. His look showed a weakness that was just like mine, showing that he felt lost, too. We were both stuck in this moment, held in a silence so deep it felt like time had stopped. A storm of questions raged inside me, and doubt bothered me, but my body was frozen. I was captivated by him, this child I had raised, who now seemed like a stranger. Just when I thought we would stay stuck in that silence forever, Daniel pulled back, breaking the spell. He looked away, and a little bit of embarrassment showed on his face as he let out a shaky laugh and rubbed the back of his neck. I was shocked back to the moment, realizing how close we had been. The weight of what we had just shared crashed down on me. I took a sharp breath, fighting the strong feelings inside me, hoping he hadn't seen the storm inside of me. "Sorry, Mom," he mumbled, his voice shaking with doubt, every word heavy. "I never meant for it to get weird." He looked away, and for a second I saw him blush, a sign that he was struggling too. Overwhelmed by my own mess of feelings, I stood there, unable to move. I badly wanted to tell him everything was okay, that this tension didn't change anything between us, but the words wouldn't come out. I stood still, stuck under the weight of things unsaid. In that quick moment, a shocking truth hit me. I had never felt so far away from my own son. I reached out and put my hand on his shoulder, a silent ask for comfort. A small smile appeared on my lips, a weak try to break the tension, but my worry was strong. I wanted to reach out to understand why this felt so different, but before I could, the moment was gone. He turned and walked to his room, leaving me in silence without looking back. The quiet surrounded us, and the soft click of his door closing sounded like the end of a talk that had barely started. I stood frozen, feeling a mix of relief and confusion. A strange feeling told me something important was left unsaid. I stared at Daniel's closed door, my heart heavy with a loss I couldn't name. Something had changed between us. A quiet tension was left in the air. This unspoken thing stayed heavy and electric as my mind replayed our moments together. The way we used to be. He had moved in close, his look staying just a second too long. With him gone, the tension remained. I went back to my room and fell onto the bed, my thoughts spinning. I couldn't escape the feeling that something had shifted between us. It needed to be talked about, and I knew we'd have to face the truth soon, but I felt lost, not knowing how. To start, a sudden knock on the door broke my thoughts, pulling me out of my spinning emotions. A spark of hope made my heart race. Maybe it was Daniel coming back to talk. "Come in," I called out, my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. The door creaked open. He stood there with that same hard-turned look on his face. He came inside and sat next to me on the bed, his hands folded, his eyes on the floor. The silence between us was finally broken by Daniel. It was thick and heavy with everything we hadn't said, almost too much to bear. The moment was heavy but needed. At last, Daniel broke the quiet, his voice a weak whisper. "Mother," he started, each word picked carefully. "I don't understand. I'm sorry if I made things awkward. His voice trailed off and frustration showed on his face as he tried to find words for feelings he couldn't explain. I reached out and put my hand on his, a quiet sign of support that said more than words. "Daniel, is it really okay?" I asked gently, my voice calm even as I felt doubt inside. "We're both feeling lost. It's been just the two of us for so long. Things get complicated and it's heavy. Is it okay to feel lost?" He nodded, his eyes locked on mine with a haunting look. His hands trembled and his eyes looked into the shadows with a heavy stare that went right through me, making my heart ache. After what felt like forever, he finally looked up at me. His eyes held a storm of feelings. Doubt, frustration, wanting, and a strong feeling that was very different. It wasn't just frustration or confusion. Something deeper was in the air. Something raw and unspoken. I was lost and couldn't find the words to reply. His voice, just a whisper, barely reached me, but the words cut through the silence. He seemed scared to admit it, but just as scared to face what had been growing between us. His words hurt me, showing a deep pain I hadn't expected. In that moment, I understood how much he was struggling, and the ache in my heart matched the confusion in his eyes. For a quick second, I wished I could go back to a simpler time when giving comfort wasn't so complicated. I wanted to hold him tight, to whisper that everything would be okay, to promise we would face this together. But doubt held me back. Would my comfort really help, or just make things worse? His needs were a mystery, and I wondered if my want to comfort him was the right thing to do. I stayed quiet, letting the heavy silence between us be filled with unsaid truths. I sat there full of unspoken words, the tension sharp in the air, waiting for the moment to break the silence. Finally, after a long time, I took a sharp breath, looked at myself, and faced him directly. I looked into his eyes, desperate to see his truth, feeling the weight of what he wanted from me. Maybe it's time to stop and really think about it. I sighed, looking for the right words. a careful mix of comfort and understanding. Being close is nice, but sometimes being alone is needed to see things clearly. We don't need all the answers right now. He nodded slowly as if my words were sinking in. But then, in a surprising move that caught me off guard, he leaned his head on my shoulder. Even though the action was familiar, the silence between us felt full of things we weren't saying. There was a tension under the surface that I couldn't ignore, a quiet knowing that things between us had changed in ways we didn't fully understand yet. My heart softened at his touch, and without thinking, I wrapped my arm around him, pulling him close in a way that felt both protective and comforting. It was a hug that offered safety, even though I knew the questions between us were far from answered. There was so much unsaid, so many feelings we hadn't dealt with yet. But in that moment, I realized that maybe we didn't need all the answers right now. We could take it one step at a time and figure it out together, even if the path forward felt unsure and complicated. As we sat there holding each other, a sense of quiet calm came over me. There was a soft, unspoken hope in the air that no matter what we were facing, no matter how hard things might seem, we could still find a way through this together. We stayed like that for a while, wrapped in a silence that felt strangely calm. Like two people sitting in the ruins of something delicate. For a short time, it felt like the confusion of our situation might just go away by being near each other. But I knew deep down it wasn't that simple. The comfort of him being there was real, but under that warmth was a feeling of worry that neither of us could get rid of. After a while, Daniel pulled away a little, lifting his head to look at me. His expression had changed, the comfort replaced by a serious intensity. "Mom, I don't know what to do with all these feelings," he said, quietly, his voice full of doubt. "I don't want to make things harder between us, but I can't just ignore it either." His words hung in the air, thick with unspoken tension, like a question he was afraid to ask. The weight of his silence pressed down on me, and my mind raced in circles as I tried to find the right words. I opened my mouth, but before I could say anything, there was another knock on the door. We both jumped at the sound, startled by the interruption. Our eyes met in surprise and confusion. The knock was firm and on purpose, almost as if the person on the other side knew something was wrong. A wave of nervousness washed over me, and I stood up and walked to the door. When I opened it, Stephen was standing there again, his face worried as if he had been thinking about something heavy. "Sorry to bother you," he said, his voice genuinely concerned. "I just wanted to check if everything was okay. You seemed a bit off earlier." I paused for a moment, then glanced back at Daniel. He was watching us closely, his face impossible to read. The air between us was full of unspoken questions. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady, though it trembled a little as I answered, "Thanks, Stephen, but we're fine. Just having a quiet evening." Stephen gave me a long, searching look, then turned his eyes to Daniel, studying him for a moment before looking back at me. He nodded slowly, though his look suggested he wasn't completely convinced. "All right," he said, his voice softening. "Just remember, I'm next door if you need anything. Don't wait to ask." When he turned and left, I closed the door with a quiet click and leaned against it, gathering my thoughts. I turned back to Daniel, who was still standing there, watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. His eyes seemed to look right through me, searching for something, maybe the truth, or maybe just comfort. After a long pause, he stood up slowly, and I felt my heart speed up again. The air between us felt heavy with all the things neither of us dared to say. He moved closer, and I prepared myself for whatever might come next. But when he reached me, he stopped, his face changing as if he were fighting an inner battle. Maybe we shouldn't push this, Mom," he said, his voice quiet and trembling a little. "Maybe we need time to think." His words hit me like a wave, and I nodded, my own heart aching with the same mixed-up feelings he must have had. I understood the need for space, for time to figure things out. "You're right, Daniel," I replied softly, my voice thick with the weight of everything unsaid. "We both need to think. We can't rush this." Daniel nodded, and we stood there in silence. Our closeness, a strange mix of nearness and distance, as if we were on the edge of something we couldn't understand or control. It felt like an ending, but also the start of something new we couldn't yet name. As he walked slowly to his room, I stayed where I was, wondering what the future would hold for us and whether we could find a way forward, together or apart.